Lisa Rickert of Unfolded, the distributor for Annie Sloan products in the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Thank you so much for joining in our Hometalk Live event. So I wanted to kind of go over what we're going to do today, give you a little bit of background about who we are and what our paint products are if you're not already familiar, and then give you a chance to participate in a giveaway that we'll do at the end of our session. So Unfolded is the kind of behind the scenes distributor that helps develop and support the network of stockists that sell Annie Sloan products. So anybody who comes on visits us here in New Orleans in our studio. Annie Sloan paint has been around since 1990, and certainly we have taken the DIY industry and created a bit of a painting furniture revolution, which, nowadays there are other options on the market, but not all decorative paints are created equal. Our chalk paint is the only, the original and the best, and what makes it so special is really the ease of use and versatility that comes along with this product. This paint can be applied to almost any surface, primarily furniture, walls, decor items, and in most cases there's no priming or sanding, hence why we get so many people painting furniture. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how we paint. Annie's method is Annie's method is very easy and free because it's really about putting the joy back in painting. So I have this small table here. I have gone ahead and painted a base coat on the legs so that when I get to my next step, you'll see how easy it is to wax. So I'm going to rotate it down and really show you the difference in the way that you can paint most of your pieces, really being very carefree with your brush stroke. First off, we have these natural bristle brushes, and the beauty of this brush is really the fact that it holds so much paint, and it also has natural bristle that will allow you to be able to create a little bit of texture on the surface. So if you have a piece that is maybe old and a little bit beat up, certainly you want to create a little bit more texture to be able to hide some of those imperfections and make it part of the character of the piece. So you can see that I'm really using my arm to paint instead of my wrist, and Annie teaches us that this is a great way for us to get paint on the surface and not tire your hand out too quickly. And I'm also using very kind of irregular brush strokes. There's no real symmetry or pattern to the design. The idea is to just get it covered very quickly in a way that later on, if you want to add some patina, you're creating a little bit of texture so that the wax will stay behind, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So as you can see, this piece was painted with Emperor Silk before, which is a very dark color, and this Paris Gray, which is one of my favorite colors of our chalk paint, covers it so beautifully. This is just one coat. We will go ahead and do a second just to make sure we have completely full coverage. But you can see that our paints are highly pigmented and they go a really long way. You get about 150 square feet out of 1 quart of paint. So that is equivalent to a very large dresser, or sometimes people can paint up to 10 pieces depending on the size.
Someone's asking where you got your paintbrush.
Our paintbrush is actually an Annie Sloan paintbrush. They are made in Italy. And what makes this brush so special, I'll show you one without paint on it, is that many times brushes can have a spacer in the center, and so the brush is not as dense. Our brushes are very dense and they come in 3 sizes, large, medium, and small. So depending on the size of your piece, You may elect to go with the large. Sometimes, you know, this can tire your hand a little bit. My favorite is the medium, and then certainly the small for smaller projects like this. But these are sold through any Annie Sloan stockist, along with the paint and waxes that I'll be using today. So now that we have our first coat on the surface, again, I'm just going to reiterate the fact that I used very irregular brush strokes, and I'm really going to just go with the texture that it creates. The reason that I point that out is because many people are afraid to paint because they think that they're not a trained painter. But Annie, you know, really wants to be able to use her product and have others use her product in a way that you embrace a little bit of texture on the surface and having a beautiful hand-painted finish. However, if that's not your style, I'm going to show you how to create a very smooth finish with chalk paint by Annie Sloan, because in some cases a more modern finish is the way to go.
Lots of people are saying that they like blues and grays and old white.
Yay! Okay, so neutrals obviously are some of our best sellers. So the colors I'm using today are actually blues and grays and whites because I thought you would enjoy that. So the next thing I'm going to do is talk a little bit about color and mixing color, and then I'm going to use that paint to do a very smooth cabinet door in a smooth modern finish, in case that is the look you're going for. And then we'll come back to this table and I will continue on to step 2, which is the top coat. So to get started, I want to just give you a little bit of background that our products are unique in that there is what we consider an artist palette. We have 35 colors currently in the chalk paint range. And you know, that's different than walking into a large paint store that's used to selling architectural coatings and you can pick from 200 different colors. The idea with our paint is that Annie is so experienced with color theory that our stockist, as well as Annie herself through her books, is teaching customers how to use color theory so that you're in control of what you create. So we do a lot of mixing colors, and we even have fun with it and do things like Mix It Mondays and help share recipes and so forth and so on. So one of my favorite mixes, especially for cabinetry, is a combination of old white and pure white. I'm going to mix it on our mix mat here, which is a unique surface that actually allows you to mix paint and it will not run, and it can just be washed and reused, so perfect for stenciling or smaller projects. You can see I'm shaking the can. This is super important. Our paint comes pre-tinted. And so when it's sitting on a shelf or even, you know, riding in trucks on the way to the end consumer, sometimes paint can separate. So it's really important for you to mix it and shake it very vigorously. For some reason, if you open the can and you see any separation, it's a good idea to take a paint stirrer and really get down to the bottom of the can and mix it thoroughly. So we have our old white here, which is a beautiful, very classic color. It does have a little bit of ivory undertone to it. So I'm gonna take just one paddle of our, actually I'm gonna do 2 paddles of our old white here. And then I'm gonna take our pure white, which is the lightest color we have. It actually lacks pigment, so that it can be as pure white as possible. And sometimes it's a little bit too stock, especially for a kitchen, depending on the rest of the decor in the house. So I'm gonna mix up a very beautiful balance between our old white and pure white. We also have a giveaway today, which is $300 worth of product. And I want to know what color you're gonna paint your next project. Included in the basket, we will have your color of choice, 2 sample pots, a clear wax, a mini dark black and white wax, as well as a large wax brush, a pure bristle brush, and a flat brush, along with a quick and easy paint transformation book to give you step-by-step directions on tackling some of your first projects. So please be sure to comment on the post what color is going to be your next project. We'd love to give away this gift basket to you in a bit. And while you're at it, please like and share this live event. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, please give us some hearts and make us feel the love. So I have 2 paddles of Old White and Pure White now on my mix mat, and I'm gonna mix these 2 colors together. And instead of using a pure bristle brush for the next project, I am going to use our flat brush. This is our small one. We also have a large, and it's synthetic bristles. And one of the things that you'll notice, the difference between this brush and a pure bristle is the hairs at the top of the pure bristle brush are not trimmed. That is what is going to give this brush the ability to create a little bit more texture than this flat brush here. You can see it's a nice even cut. So I'm gonna take this cabinet door. You know, so many of us have outdated cabinets, whether it be, you know, old oak or something, and you know, certainly there is a desire for many people to lighten their homes, update their kitchens. So Chalk Paint by Annie Sloan is certainly the perfect product for you to be able to tackle that project without necessarily ripping it out for a whole renovation. So a couple of things is, you know, the paint, our chalk paint is water-based. There will be times that maybe you're using it and the can is left open. That is going to allow the paint to thicken a little bit over time. If you ever find that your paint is a little bit too thick, you can also thin it with water. So I am, because I just mixed this paint out of fresh cans, I'm going to test it on the surface first. And you can see instead of using irregular brush strokes, I am working with the wood grain, and I'm also holding the brush in a position that I'm laying the paint onto the surface. This is going to allow you to have a much smoother finish than the way in which I demonstrated on the tabletop. Again, if you're finding that it is too difficult to paint without creating brush stroke, you can always take just a little bit of water, and instead of necessarily pouring the water into the paint, what I like to do to not contaminate the whole quart is to have a little cup of water in which you dip your brush in first just to get it wet, not that it's soaking or dripping, but just to moisten the bristles. Then you're gonna layer your paint on, and it allows it to go on even smoother. So don't hesitate to use a little bit of water. If you dilute it too much, what you'll find is you'll have more translucency. So worst case scenario, you thin it too much and you have to do another coat, but you're never ruining the paint in that respect. So what I'm doing here is going ahead and painting around the stiles and rails, because I know that I'm going to create some overlap in my brush stroke. So I'm going ahead and kind of making my mess first, and then I'm gonna come back and smooth it out with my brush. So you need to get up in the corners here. And so the small brush is certainly the perfect brush for this project because the bristles can get in these tight corners. And then once I am finished that outer rim here, again, you know, dip it into the water, then load the paint on the brush, and you can go back over it, really smoothing out any brush stroke that you created while you are painting kind of the inner crevices there. Another trick, which if we have time in this live, I'll show you, is if you gently sand between coats, it also allows you to get a smoother finish. So, you know, sometimes if you want to 45 the corner, you can do that as well so that it really imitates your wood grain that's underneath. And let's get the paint on the inside. Does anybody have any questions for me about achieving a smooth finish, or questions about your cabinets that maybe you want to tackle? Certainly I can answer them while I'm working.
We have lots of people asking what the wax will do. So.
Yep, I'm going to show you the wax in just a minute. The wax is our primary top coat, and Annie actually designed her paint to absorb the wax. So the reason she called it chalk paint is because it's suggestive of the finish. It has a beautiful velvety matte finish, and for that reason, it's incredibly porous. So the paint actually absorbs the wax and almost like creates another kind of molecular structure. So it's really, our clear wax is going to be the primary top coat that we use for all of our pieces, cabinets, interior furniture. We also have a lacquer, which we have a water-based lacquer. It's actually a varnish that we use for floors.
What color are the cabinets painted behind us?
That is a mix, because again, we love to mix color. It is a 50-50 mix of Napoleonic blue and graphite, which I think they came out really nicely, especially with that pop of brass hardware. So,
can you paint over old paint?
You can paint over old paint. If you notice this table, when I first got started, it was Emperor Silk. So that had already been painted and waxed, and I painted right over it. If you're painting cabinets and you're going over existing paint, just make sure that all of the grease or any residue that's left on the surface is cleaned off with just some soap and water, and then you can have at it. Okay, any questions about smooth finish? So again, I'm using a flat, one of our flat brushes. I dipped the paint in a little bit of water, in a little bit of water before I loaded on the paint, and then I brushed it in a way that created a bit more of like a laying down action versus the very irregular brush strokes.
Can you re-explain why you use the water?
The water, okay, so the paint itself is water-based, and so the water allows it to thin out a little bit, especially if you're painting right out of the quart or you've decanted it into another container. Just simply exposing it to the air can thicken the paint. So the water just allows it to thin out a little bit, it coalesces a little bit easier, and make sure that you don't leave any brush stroke behind.
Can you paint over laminate, glass, or old stain?
You can. You can paint over all three of those. I'm sorry?
Laminate, glass.
You can paint over laminate, glass, and old stain. You can really paint over varnish surfaces, polyurethane surfaces. The only time that you would want to really sand or prime a surface is if it has a very shiny surface. There are some imitation woods that come out of China and other places in Asia that look like wood, but they're actually foils. Sometimes those are a little bit difficult to cover, but if you sand the surface just to give it a little bit of bite for the paint, for the adhesion, it should work perfectly. The adhesion is something that makes our product really so superior and so special. Because it is, it allows people to paint without priming or sanding. And it's really about the ingredients in the paint that gives it that adhesion qualities that is, makes it possible and really blows everybody's mind. So going back unless there's any other questions. Okay, so going back to our table here, I went ahead and put a base coat on the legs as well as the apron here. I really wanted to demonstrate the painting technique across the top. But now I'm gonna go ahead and wax. Again, our first top coat, the primary component to the paint, is our Annie Sloan chalk paint wax in clear. This can be applied with a brush or a rag. Of course, I am partial to our brushes. We have 2 wax brushes, the large, which is really great for large surfaces, and as well as the small, which has a little bit more of a pointed tip, so perfect to get in like these crevices here in detailed areas. The wax has a consistency of, you know, like a margarine almost, and you really want to think about it as hand cream. You want to put it on the surface and wipe off the excess. So if you put too much cream on your hands, you wouldn't walk around with sticky fingers. You would make sure to either rub it in or wipe it off. The wax is probably the most unique step to our paint because, you know, people weren't really using furniture wax before Annie introduced it as a marriage, you know, to paint. Sometimes people would use furniture wax, but it was right on top of woods and things of that nature. So some of our customers need a little bit of help. So please make sure you ask questions as I go through this process, because this is the part that I really want you to nail.
And can you remind the audience what color you painted?
This is Paris Gray. Paris Gray is one of our neutrals. It is probably my favorite color. My first house that I painted after I found Annie's products, I painted my entire kitchen in Paris Gray. And it's still painted that way to this day. It's a beautiful color. It's really, you know, embodies the essence of French furniture. So anything that has characteristics like this one of a Louis XVI, Louis XV pieces, Paris Gray is perfect. It's also can be paired with like kind of farmhouse chic and French country. So it's just a beautiful color that has a little bit more depth to it than say a white, but it can work with anything in your decor.
And where can you find the paint?
You can find the paint at any of our stockists, which if you visit unfolded.com, you will find a listing of all the stockists that are in our territories, which is the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. You can also buy the paint online if you don't have a stockist near you. You can also visit anniesloan.com to find a list of stockists and learn a little bit more about their shops. There's a nice description kind of characterizing the style and the essence of each store. So whatever website you find easier to use, you can find our retailers, which we call stockists. So I should have prefaced that a little bit. Stockist is an English term for retailer, and because Annie Sloan is really a global brand, we use it consistently around our territories. And so going back to the wax, I just loaded a little bit. You can see that I'm not gopping the wax on, but I have a little bit of wax on the tip. And I'm gonna go ahead and just brush it on to the surface. You can see that it's changing the color of the paint a little bit, which is a good guide for you to see what areas you've waxed and what areas you need to do another coat. It's sometimes easier to just do 2 thin coats of wax to make sure that you've covered the entire surface. This. So you can see that it doesn't take long at all, and this is such a small table that I'm working with. It's about to fall off here. This is such a small table that I'm working with that I'm covering a decent amount of surface at one time. If you were doing a large tabletop, you would want to make sure to stop after probably a square meter or so and make sure that you're wiping the excess wax off of the surface. You can use old t-shirts, soft cloths, you know, whatever you have handy. Make sure that it doesn't have dye in it. Don't use an old blue t-shirt to wipe off the excess wax. And you can see I'm just kind of gently going over the surface. I'm not trying to buff it. I'm not trying to, you know, take a whole lot of vigorous action here. I'm just wiping off the excess. So if you were just doing clear wax, that is the point in which you would stop. I'm gonna do this edge here so you can see it from the side. Okay, that's the point in which you would stop. You would leave it for 24 hours, and then you can come back and buff it the next day with a soft cloth if you want to create a little bit of sheen. If you're going to create some patina, which I think this piece is calling for given the detail, this is the point in which you would add dark wax, black wax, or a combination of the two on top of the surface. My favorite is actually a mix of dark wax and black wax because I feel like it's a beautiful balance between the warmth of the dark wax, which you can see here. This was our original patina wax, and the brand new dark wax, the black wax, which is a little bit cooler. And you'll see once I get it on a plate, the difference. So I'm just gonna scoop out a little bit of black and a little bit of dark, and I'm going to mix it in my bowl. And first I'm going to show you how to apply just a little bit, because sometimes you might not want to cover an entire surface with dark wax or black wax. You might just want to highlight some of the crevices. So I'm using just a little artist brush and mixing the black and the dark together, making sure that I remove excess because I just want to put a little bit on the surface here. And then I'm going to go in and really kind of just highlight, you know, certain areas that I may want to wax. Then the idea is for you to wipe it back just like the clear. So if you're brushing it on the surface and you're like, I love it, you can't leave it that way. You still have to wipe off the excess. And if you decide, you know what, I've put a little bit too much wax on, you can always take off additional wax with the clear wax. So I'm going to continue on with the artist brush just to show you, you know, that maybe you want to just kind of highlight, maybe you just want to kind of highlight this bead here and not do the whole leg. You know, the artist brush is perfect for that. Maybe you want to highlight this bead here. And wipe off the excess. Or you might be going for a much stronger look. In which you do want to cover the entire surface. I'm using the small wax brush because it's pointed, so I can make sure that I get in all of these crevices here. All the fluting and carvings. And then I'm going to wipe off the excess. Okay, so this is a great example because you can see now that there's really not a whole lot of delineation between the inside of my carvings and the outside of my carvings because I used the big brush to cover the entire piece. So what I'm going to do now is actually take a clean rag. I'm going to load a little bit of the clear wax and go back over the surface, really trying to focus on the outside of the carvings. And I'm wiping back additional dark and black wax mixture. So you can see it reconstitutes the wax, allowing you to take it back off the surface. I'm going to tell you the most important thing about using dark wax and black wax. You must apply it over clear, especially with light colors, because that allows you the ability to manipulate how much you have on the surface. Again, our paint is meant to absorb the wax, and so the stain, if you don't have that barrier of clear wax on there first, is gonna take the stain and you won't be able to change it. So this beautiful blue piece would then become brown and black. So look how pretty that is now. You can really see the detail of the piece, but it's not necessarily overwhelming with the dark and black wax.
We have people asking what the clear wax does, like to the piece.
The clear wax is the paint's top coat. It's really what's gonna give the piece durability. Think about having an ultra flat paint. Where, you know, it could pick up oils from fingers or other surfaces. You know, the clear wax is what's going to give it the protection and durability to live and wear every day. We encourage people to use wax on their cabinets. In that case, you would do 2 coats of wax for added durability. And over time, if you're wiping it a lot and cleaning surfaces, it's always a good idea every maybe 3 or 4 years to put another coat of clear wax on, just to make sure that your piece is properly protected. So I'm going to take this one step further. We also have a product called gilding wax. This is available in 5 colors. Copper, bright silver, dark silver, warm gold, and bright gold, which is my favorite. So you're going to kind of think about it as more of like a rub, you know, than like what you would use to gild, which is gold leaf and gold size. So I just put a little bit on your fingertip. You can also use an artist brush if you're not comfortable with it, and really just kind of rub it on the surface to give it just some beautiful metallic highlights. So that's another option. And I'm going to show you one more thing to do with wax because it's very important. First, you got to get your brush stroke down, whether you want a textured finish or a smooth finish, and then you need to get your wax down. So I'm going to rotate.
How do you clean the paint and wax off your brushes?
The paint is water-based, so you just wash it with some warm water. The wax, you would just wash with like any kind of grease cutting soap, like Dawn dish liquid or anything that you would normally wash your dishes with. So I have one more wax to show you, which is our white wax. The white wax, you can actually go right on top of the paint. You don't have to clear wax first. Very different than what I just explained with the dark wax and the black wax. So I am going to dip my brush in a little bit of white wax here just to show you the difference.
We have someone saying that they love old white with dark wax.
Beautiful. It's very classic. I'm sure you understand the importance of putting your clear wax on before the dark wax, if that's your favorite. Okay, so the white wax does have pigment in it, and sometimes you have to let it set up a little bit on the surface. So I'm gonna give it just a second. How are we doing with our giveaway questions? Is anybody telling us what colors they're going to paint their next project?
Lots of people like Louis Blue and Cocoa, and then we've got some brighter colors like Florence and Amsterdam Green.
Yes, Amsterdam Green, that's one of our new ones. It's so lush and beautiful and just perfect for spring and summer and really every season in between. So I let the wax kind of sit on the surface a little bit longer. You can really give it a few more minutes, but you can see that I'm wiping it back in the same way that I would the clear wax. And instead of just being completely clear like the other one was, you can see that there's some white pigment left behind. Kind of emulates a look of a wash, of a whitewash in some respects, but without having to do another layer of paint. And certainly if you were doing white wax over a darker color, you know, you would see it even more. So, what questions do we have about waxing?
Where can you see, sorry, that wasn't a wax question.
That's okay, any question.
Do you need to wax it over time?
Not often. I mean, wax will stay on the surface for years and years and years. If it is a table that you're using every day or kitchen cabinets that are wiped down regularly, I would say to apply another coat of clear wax every, 2 to 3 years. And sometimes if you spill something on the surface, the best way to clean it is actually another coat of clear wax.
And what if you decide at a later time that you want to use dark wax? Can you just add it?
You would not. You would add dark wax only immediately following clear wax. So if you want to add dark wax later, put a little bit of clear wax back on the surface first and then apply your dark wax. Again, that's going to create that buffer to give you the opportunity to really manipulate the color.
What are the colors that we have?
We have 35 colors. You can see our color chart here. And I love the way that Annie sets this up because she really puts it in the form of a color wheel or a color pyramid, because it's important to understand when you're mixing colors which ones are the complementaries of each other, because certainly that gives you an opportunity to create more sophisticated colors, knock back colors, but also allows you to be a little bit more educated when you're making color choices of which ones pair well together. But these are our 35 colors. We have about 15 neutrals, maybe a bit more, and then 20 brighter colors.
What are some of their names?
Some of their names. So we have anything from pure white, old white, Paris gray, French linen, graphite. These are our primary neutrals here. And then on, the blue family, we have Greek blue, Louis blue, Giverny, Provence, duck egg blue, Aubusson blue, Florence, Napoleonic blue, old violet, Emile, Paloma, Henrietta, Antoinette, Burgundy, Emperor silk, Scandinavian pink, cocoa, Primer red, Enfleur, Arles, Barcelona orange, old ochre, cream, country gray, English yellow, Versailles, Antibes green, Chateau gray, olive, Amsterdam green. 35 colors.
Do you want to repeat the giveaway question?
Our giveaway question is, what color are you going to paint your next project? And let me show you what we're going to give you. So this is a gift basket here worth $300 of product. You're going to get a color card, a quick and easy paint transformation book, which is perfect for your 50 step-by-step how-tos. We have a large flat brush here. a large wax brush, a medium, pure bristle brush, any color which you choose for your next project, clear wax, sample sizes of our 3 additional wax, as well as 2 sample pots, so you can do your own color mixing. Do we have a giveaway winner?
We have the winner is Camille Comer.
Camille Comer.
She wants to paint her kitchen cabinets in old white.
Yay! Well, look what I have in the basket already waiting for you. Old white. Congratulations, Camille. And we're certainly here for you if you have any questions along the way.
And can you repeat again where you buy the product?
You can reach out to us, get all of our contact information for Unfolded, which is going to be the distributor for Annie Sloan products in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. You can find us at www.unfolded.com. You can get all of our contact information there if you have any technical questions, and you can also find where your local stockist is. If you don't have a local stockist near you, you also have an opportunity to buy from unfolded.com. And we make sure to actually share the profits from those online sales with our stockist community, because we are avid supporters of small business and selling through small business.
We hope to see you again.
We hope to see you again. This is the first of hopefully several new Home Talk Lives to come. We appreciate you liking and sharing this post, giving us love with all your hearts, and certainly follow us at Annie Sloan Unfolded on the Home Talk page, as well as our Facebook page. And the global website is anniesloan.com, and her social pages are Annie Sloan Home on Facebook and Instagram, so be sure to follow us wherever. Thank you.
Do I say finish?
Bye, everyone.